Hi folks, and today I thought I'd talk a little bit about VO2 Max, which is also known as your aerobic capacity. Reason being, pretty much everybody has heard about VO2 Max. People are usually enamored with what their VO2 Max is. If you've got a Garmin from the mid-range on up and maybe some other watches, it's telling you what your VO2 Max is, and everybody wants the higher, the better. And that is true to a large extent. However, I can tell you that VO2 Max is far and away not going to be the thing that predicts how well you do in your race. But going back to this, so VO2 max and aerobic capacity are really the same thing. What are they? It's the maximum amount of oxygen that you can use in a particular period of time. Usually it's measured in how much per minute, but you could make it per 5 seconds, per 2 minutes, whatever. It's really your ability to take in and use oxygen. So how do we improve our VO2 max? It is almost always done with interval work. Interval work meaning that you're going to have a period of running followed by some type of recovery. That recovery could be walking, could be jogging, etc. From an effort standpoint, if you're just using effort, usually it's a words effort, meaning that you don't want to talk, but if you had to talk, you would only be able to spit out some words before you have to take a gasp of breath, and it's typically between your 3 and 5K pace. It is easy to make the effort too hard, and it's no longer a VO2 max workout. It's become an anaerobic workout, which is entirely different. But if you're looking to improve VO2 max, again, that's a words effort, typically 3K to 5K paces where you do those intervals. Now, more typically, those intervals are usually going to be no shorter than 3 minutes and no longer than 5 minutes. Now, of course, somebody's going to say, hey, wait, I was doing this and I was doing it too. Yeah, there's times it can be less than 2, but in general, each interval is going to be somewhere between the 3 and the 5 minute range. Now, let's do some math. Typically, in a given session, meaning the workout that day, you're looking for about 10 to 12 minutes of time running at VO2 max. There's no point in doing more than that. You can certainly do a little bit less, but the science has shown, if you do more than 11, 12 minutes, you really don't get any benefit from that for the most part. So 10 to 12 minutes is what you're looking for. Let's look at an example. Let's say you've got to do 5 by 800 meters and you're supposed to do those in 3 minutes and 30 seconds each. So some quick math, you go, hey, wait a minute. Mark, that's 17 plus minutes. Didn't you just say 10 to 12? Didn't you say there's no benefit in doing more? Aha, that's because when you're running that 3 minutes and 30 seconds, not all of that time is likely to be spent at VO2 max because you gotta get going first. As a general rule of thumb, it takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes of running before you hit your VO2 max. Now, there's a lot of different things there to come into play with what that's going to be, but in that example, if you're running for 3 minutes and 30 seconds and it takes you 1.5 to 2 minutes, only about 2 minutes, maybe even a little bit less of that time was actually spent at VO2 max. However, what happens is every one you probably spend a little bit more time because your body's more warmed up. We can manipulate that a little bit with how long the rest periods are. A lot of time a rest period for that might be 3 minutes. So the next one, instead of being 2 minutes, maybe you're going to get 2 minutes and 10 seconds. The next one, you're going to get 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So chances are each one you're going to get a little bit more time at your VO2 max. Again, looking to try and get somewhere between 10 and 12 minutes altogether. So you typically do not do VO2 max work more than once a week, and you typically don't do every week. So in a given month, maybe you're going to do it 3 times. People say, well, wait a minute. Why don't I do this more often? If it's a good way to improve my VO2 max and VO2 max is important, why not more often? No, one reason is recovery. You've got to plan some recovery. If you're just in there hammering it all the time, you're not going to get good recovery. And it's also an accumulation over time. No one session, even though Garmin might tell you you've improved, no one session is really going to do that. It's accumulation over time. But then finally, and this is probably the most important, is you can't outrun your aerobic base. In other words, you could have a really high VO2 max, but if you don't have a really good aerobic base, what that means is you can take in a lot of oxygen for a very, very short period of time. Now, if you're running short races, that's great. But if you're running even the 5Ks and up, you want to be able to do that for a long period of time. So your training has to have a balance of really building that up, that aerobic base, along with those little sessions of VO2 max work.